They said he fell asleep. They said he fell to his death. But when the pastor's hands touched his lifeless body, something ancient, something divine, awakened. Was it the power of faith, or something far greater? Don't blink. Watch till the end to uncover the truth. The sun hung low that Sunday morning, like a golden drum in the sky, beating softly over the rooftops of Agbani village. The church stood proudly in the center of the town, a tall 3-story building, painted white and blue, its cross gleaming in the light. People came from far and near, their footsteps echoing with songs of faith. Among them was a young boy named Chuka, quiet, gentle, with eyes that carried both innocence and curiosity. He came to church with his mother, Mama Adisa, a widow who never missed a Sunday. Chuka always liked to sit near the window upstairs. From there, he could see the mango trees, the dusty roads, and the sky that stretched like a promise. The service began with singing, drums pounding, tambourines rattling, hands lifted high. Pastor Nana, a man known for his fiery sermons, climbed the pulpit. His voice rolled through the hall like thunder. "Faith without works is dead," he shouted, sweat glistening on his forehead. "But faith that endures, faith that holds even when life falls apart, that faith brings power." The congregation shouted, "Amen!" Chuka tried to listen, but his eyes grew heavy. The air upstairs was warm and still. The pastor's voice began to drift, like waves pulling him towards sleep. Mama Adais noticed and whispered, "Nah, don't sleep here. Wake up." But the boy only smiled weakly. "I'm listening, Mama," he murmured, then leaned his head against the wall. The next sound that came was not from the pastor nor the choir. It was the scream of a mother. Chuka had slipped from the window, and before anyone could move, he was gone. The sound of the fall shook the church like lightning striking the earth. Women screamed, men shouted. The preacher's Bible fell from his hand. Outside, Chuka lay motionless on the ground, his white shirt stained with dust, his limbs twisted in unnatural angles. Mama Adais pushed through the crowd, her wrapper loosening, her head tie falling away. My son! My son!" she cried, her voice tearing through the stillness. People gathered around, whispering. Some said he fainted, some said he was gone. The ushers ran to block the sight from the children. Pastor Anana froze for a moment. His lips trembled, and sweat streamed down his face. Then he whispered, "Lord, what is this?" 2 men carried Chuka inside, laying him before the pulpit. His chest did not rise, his eyes were closed, his body still. Mama Adisi knelt beside him, shaking his shoulders. "Chuka, open your eyes, Biko. My only son, please wake up." No response. The air grew heavy. Some began to weep. Others quietly left their seats, fearing that death had entered the house of God. Then the pastor raised his hand. "Nobody moves," he said quietly. "Nobody leaves. The Spirit of God is here." His voice was no longer trembling. It carried a strange strength, something ancient, something not of man. He bent down beside the boy, laid one hand on his chest and closed his eyes. The choir began to hum softly, the kind of hymn that seemed to come from the bones of the earth. "Spirit of life," the pastor whispered, "return this child, for your glory, not ours." And as the prayer began, something in the air shifted. Even the wind seemed to stop and listen. "Pray," the pastor cried, his voice rising above the whispers. "Children of God, lift your hands." The congregation obeyed. Some trembled, others wept. A strange wind moved through the hall, though all the windows were shut. Candles flickered. Babies stopped crying. Even the drums stood silent. Pastor Nana knelt by Chuka's body, his palms pressed to the boy's chest. "He shall live," he shouted. "He shall not die." Mama Ados clutched her wrapper and whispered, "Jehovah, don't take my son. You took my husband already. Don't take my joy." A woman beside her fell to her knees. "Father, show us mercy," she cried. Minutes felt like hours. The pastor continued praying, his voice breaking with passion. Sweat drenched his shirt and his knees shook, but he would not stop. Then something strange began to happen. The ground beneath the pulpit vibrated, softly at first, then stronger. The metal cross on the wall rattled as though alive. The pastor's voice deepened, no longer his own. "Chuka," he said. But it wasn't just him speaking. It was a voice layered with echoes, ancient, commanding, compassionate. "Your time has not come." The crowd gasped. Some shouted, "Jesus! Jesus!" Others fell on their faces. Pastor Nana's hand trembled violently. A faint warmth spread from his palm to the boy's chest. like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Then silence. The wind died. The pastor's breathing slowed. And suddenly, a cough. A weak, raspy sound. Mama Adaze froze. Her eyes widened. "Chuka?" she whispered. The boy's fingers twitched. His chest rose once, then again. The crowd screamed, "Hallelujah!" But deep within the pastor's spirit, something else stirred. Something he could not explain. This was no ordinary miracle. Something ancient had awoken that day. For 3 days after the miracle, Agbani village could not sleep. Everywhere people gathered in small groups, whispering, "They say the boy died for 7 minutes. No, my sister said it was 10. Whatever it was, that child crossed over." At the market, women abandoned their trade to gossip. At the river, young men spoke in hushed tones. Even the elders sat beneath the udala tree, shaking their heads. "Something old walks among us again," said Elder Obi, the oldest man in the village. "A power that has not shown itself since our fathers' fathers." Meanwhile, in the small home of Mama Adaes, Chuka sat quietly on his bed. His skin was pale, his eyes distant. "Are you feeling well, my son?" she asked, touching his forehead. He nodded slowly. "Yes, Mama, but I hear voices." Mama Adaes' hand froze. "Voices? What kind of voices?" He looked toward the window, the same window he had fallen from. "They're calling my name, Mama, but they sound kind." She swallowed hard. "Don't listen to them, my child. You're alive. You're here with me." That night, while the village slept, Chuka woke to a soft light in his room. It wasn't from a lamp or candle. It came from within him, a faint glow pulsing under his skin. He stood and looked into the mirror. For a moment, he saw not his reflection, but another face, a man's face, ancient, gentle, watching him with eyes of fire and compassion. "Who are you?" Chuka whispered. The voice replied, not in sound, but in his heart. "I am the reason you breathe again." And as the light faded, Chuka realized his return from death was not an ending. It was the beginning of something far greater. By the next Sunday, the church could not contain the crowd. People climbed walls, stood on benches, even gathered outside under umbrellas, just to catch a glimpse of the boy who came back from the dead. Pastor Nanana stood at the pulpit, staring at the sea of faces. His sermon was simple that morning. "We have seen the hand of God," he said quietly. "But let us not worship the miracle. Let us worship the Maker." Still, the people wanted more. They wanted to see. After the service, many came to touch Chuka's hand, to hear his voice, to look into his eyes. Some brought sick relatives, hoping the boy's presence might heal them. At first, Chuka felt shy. But when one old woman took his hand, crying that her legs no longer ached, something deep within him stirred again. A wave of warmth passed from him to her. She gasped, dropped her walking stick, and began to walk without help. The crowd erupted. "He has the gift!" they shouted. "The boy is a vessel of God." But Pastor Nana's face darkened. He remembered the tremor that shook the ground during that first prayer, the ancient voice that had spoken through him. That was not how ordinary miracles felt. That night, when everyone had gone, he sat alone in the empty church staring at the cross. "Lord," he whispered, "what truly happened that day? Was it you, or something else?" And as the wind crept through the windows, he thought he heard a whisper, faint but clear. "He was chosen before you were born." The days that followed brought both awe and fear. Everywhere Chuka went, people whispered. Some bowed in respect, others kept their distance. At school, classmates stared as if he were a spirit in human flesh. One boy even sprinkled salt around his desk, whispering, "If he truly died, I won't sit near him." Chuka tried to laugh it off, but something inside him felt heavy. Each night he dreamt of a river, wide, endless, with silver water that shimmered under a strange moon. Voices called from it, chanting his name softly, lovingly. "Come back," they said. "You left too soon." He always woke trembling, gasping for air. Mama Adaes would rush in, clutching her wrapper. "What is it, my son?" He would shake his head. "It's nothing, Mama. Just a dream." But the dreams grew stronger. One night, when he awoke, he saw footprints on the floor. Wet footprints, leading from his bed to the window. Outside, the wind sang like distant drums. The next morning, he asked Pastor Nana, "Sir, when I died, where did I go?" The pastor looked at him for a long time, then sighed. "That is not for us to know, my son. But if the Lord sent you back, it is for a reason. Guard your spirit carefully." Chuka nodded. But as he walked home, he couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, had come back with him. That night, the wind rose with strange fury. Palm trees bent like frightened dancers, and the moon hid behind thick clouds. Chuka could not sleep. His body glowed faintly again, as though responding to something unseen. Then he heard it. The sound of rushing water, though there was no river near their home. He stood, barefoot, and followed the sound outside. Down the road past the sleeping huts and the mango trees, he saw it. A shining river flowing where none had ever been before. He blinked. The air shimmered like heat over fire. From the river, a tall figure emerged, neither man nor spirit, cloaked in light that shifted like smoke. "Do not be afraid," the figure said, his voice both gentle and powerful. "You touched the boundary that few returned from. You carry our mark now." Chuka's knees trembled. "Who are you?" The being smiled. "We are the Watchers, keepers of the space between life and death. You were not meant to fall that day, but fate opened a door. We healed you, and through you something ancient breathes again." Chuka took a step back. "Why me?" "Because the being said, only a pure heart can hold light without burning." Before he could speak again, the river vanished, leaving behind only silence and the beating of his heart. From that night, everything changed. Chuka began to see things others could not. Faint glimmers hovering over people's heads like candles. Some burned bright, some flickered weakly, some were already fading. Once he touched a neighbor's sick baby, and the glow returned to the child's body like a spark catching fire. But other times, when he tried to help, the light refused to respond. "Why does it work for some and not others?" he asked the pastor one day. Pastor Nana looked troubled. "Because not every pain is meant to be healed by man," he said softly. "Even you, Chuka, are not beyond the laws of heaven." The boy's fame spread beyond Agbani. Reporters came from the city. Videos of him praying for the sick went viral. People called him the boy who spoke with angels. But fame brought envy. Some pastors accused him of witchcraft. Others said his gift was not from God, but from dark spirits. At home, Mama Ades prayed day and night. "Father, whatever you gave my son, let it not destroy him." But she could not stop what was coming, for light always draws shadows, and something dark had begun to follow the boy who came back from the dead. It began on a Sunday, exactly 1 year after Chuka's miracle. The church was packed again, even fuller than before. People came from neighboring towns, desperate for healing. Chuka sat quietly in the front row as the choir sang. Pastor Nana preached about humility and the dangers of pride. His eyes, though gentle, often rested on Chuka. Suddenly, a woman in the back began to convulse. Her screams pierced the air. "Fire! Fire is burning me!" she cried. The ushers rushed to hold her, but she broke free, pointing straight at Chuka. You carry two spirits, one of light, one of shadow." The church erupted. Some screamed, others prayed in tongues. Chuka stood frozen, tears filling his eyes. "Pastor, I don't understand." Pastor Nanana's face hardened. "Bring the boy to me." As Chuka stepped forward, the woman collapsed. Silence filled the hall. The pastor laid his hand on Chuka's shoulder and felt a surge of energy that nearly threw him backward. He gasped. For a moment, he saw through the boy. Saw rivers, fire, stars, and 1,000 faces whispering his name. Then everything went dark. When he opened his eyes, Chuka was on the floor again. Still, cold, lifeless. He had fallen once more. And this time, the pastor wasn't sure he would return. Darkness surrounded him. But this time, it was not empty. Chuka floated above a silver plain, where voices sang in a language he didn't know, but somehow understood. In the distance, he saw the river again, and the Watcher waiting. "Why am I here again?" he asked. The Watcher's eyes glowed. "Because you carry what men cannot comprehend. You were given light, but men turned it into spectacle. Now you must choose." "Choose what?" "To stay or to go back. If you stay, your soul will rest. If you return, your life will no longer be your own." Chuka looked down and saw visions of his mother crying, the pastor kneeling beside his body, the villagers shouting in confusion. He felt torn. "I don't want to die, but I don't want to be worshipped either." The Watcher smiled faintly. "Then return, not as a miracle, but as a message." Light engulfed him, blinding, beautiful. And somewhere far away, Pastor Nana shouted, "He's breathing again!" The boy gasped, his chest rising once more. But when he opened his eyes, something had changed. This time, he remembered everything. When Chuka opened his eyes again, the church went silent. No one shouted. No one moved. They only watched, breathless. He sat up slowly, his voice calm and strange. "Don't cry," he said softly. "I've been where there are no tears." Mama Edis rushed to him, sobbing with joy. "My son, you came back again." But as she hugged him, she felt his heartbeat. Strong, yet slow, like a drum echoing from a distant hill. Pastor Nana fell to his knees. "Father, what manner of a child is this?" Chuka looked around the room. His eyes were no longer the same. They glowed faintly, reflecting something beyond this world. "Pastor," he said quietly, "there are things you do not see. The woman who screamed was not lying. There are shadows in this house, but they fear the light." Everyone shivered. He stood, weak but steady, and lifted his hand toward the ceiling. "You built this church to honor God," he said. "But too many hearts here came seeking power, not presence." The lights flickered. A wind blew through the hall, lifting the pages of every Bible. And in that wind came a voice. Deep, layered, ancient. "Heed the message, or lose the flame." When the wind stopped, half the congregation was on their knees. The rest were in tears. That day, many confessed their secrets. Jealousy, greed, lies. And the church was never the same again. But for Chuka, the true test had only begun. After that second resurrection, the boy withdrew from public eyes. He stopped attending school, stopped going to the market. He spent most of his days by the riverbank, the real one beyond the hills, sitting quietly beneath a palm tree. "Why do you sit here all day?" Mama Adesa asked one afternoon, her voice heavy with worry. Chuka smiled faintly. "Because here, the world speaks softly." Sometimes the pastor came to visit him. They would sit in silence, watching the water. "I don't know how to guide you anymore," Pastor Nana admitted one evening. "You walk where no man has walked twice." Chuka nodded. "I don't need guidance, sir. I need understanding. I was given something, but I don't yet know what to do with it." The pastor sighed deeply. "Then ask the one who sent it." That night, Chuka prayed under the moon. "Lord, I didn't ask for this gift, but if it's truly yours, show me how to use it to heal, not to divide." The wind stirred, and in it came a whisper. "The light was never yours to keep. It was given so others may remember the way." He understood then. His purpose was not to be worshipped, but to awaken. Still, darkness lingered, watching, waiting. The following week, a great sickness struck the village. Children began to cough blood, men collapsed in the fields, and women wailed at night. The air itself felt poisoned. Fear spread faster than the disease. "Is this a curse?" people cried. "Has the boy angered the spirits?" Some even turned against Chuka. Stones were thrown at their house. One night, a mob gathered outside, shouting, "Send the boy away before he kills us all." Mama Ades wept. "What have we done, Lord?" Then, in the middle of the chaos, Chuka stepped outside, barefoot, holding only a lantern. "If it's me they want," he said, "I will face it." The crowd fell silent as he walked into the village square. The sick lay around him, moaning softly. He knelt beside one, a child with eyes glazed over. He placed the lantern down and whispered, "You will live." Then he lifted his eyes to the sky and shouted, "If I am light, then let darkness see it." A sudden wind howled. The flames of the lantern rose, bright as the sun. Every sick person around him gasped, and one by one, they began to breathe freely again. The crowd dropped to their knees, but Chuka fell too, exhausted, trembling, his body fading between shadow and light. The watcher's voice echoed faintly in his heart. "Power burns those who wield it for love. Rest now, child of two worlds." The next morning, the sickness was gone, but so was Chuka. Mama Adeus searched everywhere, crying his name until her voice broke. The pastor joined her, walking through fields and forests. Finally, they found him beneath the old palm tree by the river. Peaceful, eyes closed, a faint smile on his face. The lantern still burned beside him, though there was no oil in it. Pastor Nana knelt beside the body, tears streaming down his face. "He gave himself to save them all," he whispered. Mama Ades held her son's cold hand. "He was too good for this world," she said softly. Even death came to learn from him. The village mourned for 7 days. Bells tolled, drums beat slow songs of farewell. Yet every night, when the wind passed through the church windows, candles flickered on their own, as if the boy still watched over them. And so they built a small shrine by the river, not to worship him, but to remember the lesson he left behind. Faith is not in miracles. Faith is in love. Years passed. The world changed. Phones replaced drums. Screens replaced stories. But one tale refused to fade. Grandmothers still whispered it to their grandchildren by the fireside. The boy who fell from the window, yet rose twice. Once by grace, and once by purpose. Some said he was an angel sent in human form. Others said he was a test, a reminder that light and shadow both serve the same maker. Pastor Nana grew old, but every Sunday he ended his sermon with the same words. Never chase power, chase love. For even the smallest act done in love holds more power than 1,000 miracles. And when the wind blows softly through Agbani village, people still swear they hear a child's laughter near the river, gentle, distant, and eternal. The laughter of a boy who once touched death and brought life back with him. Moral of the story: in the land where faith meets fear, miracles do not belong to the powerful. They belong to the pure. The people of Agbani still speak about that morning when light filled the church. They say even the air trembled. One moment there was the sound of preaching. The next there was the scream of a mother and the terrible silence that follows death. A boy had fallen from the 3rd floor, Chuka, the quiet one who used to stare through the window at the mango trees. When they carried him inside, dust on his eyelashes. The world seemed to stop. His mother's cries cut through the hall like a blade. The pastor's voice cracked as he whispered, "Lord, not here, not now." Everyone in that church faced the same question we all face when life shatters. What do you do when faith meets the impossible? Pastor Nana could have frozen in fear. The crowd could have scattered. But something ancient in him refused to surrender. He knelt, pressed his hands on the lifeless boy's chest, and prayed as though his own breath depended on it. The words were not rehearsed. They came from that deep place inside a person that only pain can reach. "Spirit of life," he said, "return this child." Nothing moved at first, only the sound of his mother sobbing. Then the wind entered through the windows, soft but full of power. It lifted the pages of the open Bible, rustled the curtains, and seemed to answer the prayer itself. And when the boy's body twitched, just a small cough that could have been nothing, every soul in that building learned a truth that no sermon had ever taught them. Faith is not loud. It is not always the dance or the drum. Faith is the quiet madness that makes a person keep speaking light into darkness when every eye tells them it's too late. We often think miracles begin with heaven hearing us, but many begin with us refusing to stop believing even when heaven seems silent. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to act while trembling. Pastor Nanana did not perform magic that day. He simply became the bridge between despair and hope. When you are faced with your own impossible, when the business fails, when the love ends, when the doctor shakes his head, remember this story. Remember the way Mama Hadisa's knees hit the floor, and the way her hands reached for her son though he was cold. Remember the pastor who stayed on his knees long after his strength was gone. That stubborn hope can move the unseen. The world often mocks faith. It demands evidence before belief. But in Agbani, evidence came after belief. A heartbeat returned after the prayer, not before it. And maybe that is how all change happens. You believe first, you act first, you risk looking foolish first. Then the world catches up. Faith is not a contract, it's a surrender. It says, even if I fall again, I will still believe. Chuka's story reminds us that the line between death and life, between failure and resurrection, is often drawn by one more attempt, one more word of courage, one more refusal to give up. When life falls from the window of your plans, don't rush to pronounce it dead. Bend your knees, whisper life back into it. Speak to the dream, the love, the future that looks finished. Like the pastor in that church, press your hands on what seems gone and say, breathe again. Faith doesn't guarantee that the outcome will always be what you expect, but it does guarantee that fear will not have the final word. And if you listen closely, in the stillness after your prayer, you may hear what the people of Agbani heard that morning. The sound of possibility waking up. They say the sound of a mother's scream can travel beyond walls, beyond time itself. That morning in Agbani, when Chuka's small body hit the ground, the earth seemed to echo her cry. Windows rattled, and even the birds stopped mid-flight. Mama Ades ran down the stairway barefoot, her wrapper loosening as she stumbled, calling her son's name again and again. But the only answer was silence, heavy, final. cruel. When she reached him, she touched his cheek and felt the chill of fading life. Someone tried to hold her back, whispering, "He's gone." But she shook them off. Her voice cracked. "My child cannot die in the house of God." Her words were not polished with theology. They were soaked in pain, the kind of pain that refuses to follow the rules. And perhaps that is why heaven listened. She gathered his head into her lap. Dust streaked her tears. "Chuka, open your eyes," she begged, her thumb tracing the scar on his brow from when he'd fallen off a mango tree years ago. "You always wake up for Mama. Wake up now." People stood around, unsure whether to comfort her or to hide their faces. Some prayed under their breath. Others whispered, maybe it was his time. But Mama Ades refused that sentence. Her love would not let go. When Pastor Nana came and knelt beside her, she did not look up. She simply held the boy tighter. "Pray," she said. "Don't tell me to be strong. Pray." And when the pastor placed his hand on Chuka's chest, her other hand rested there too. Two hands, one of faith, one of love, meeting over lifeless ribs. That was when everything changed. Every community knows a mother like Ades, fierce in love, fragile in body, unyielding in spirit. She reminds us that love, at its purest, is a kind of rebellion. It defies logic. It fights for what the world has written off. Most of us, when we lose something dear, a dream, a relationship, a purpose, we bury it quickly. We say it's over to protect ourselves from hope. But Mama Adesi teaches that healing doesn't begin by letting go too soon. Sometimes healing begins by holding on long enough for life to return. Her refusal to let go was not denial, it was conviction. It was the unspoken truth that love itself is a language heaven understands. When we cry over what we've lost, when we plead for one more chance, we are not weak. We are speaking that ancient dialect of persistence that creation recognizes. Her tears were prayers. Her grip was faith in physical form. And her story tells every listener, there is power in refusing to surrender to despair. You may not be kneeling on a dusty church floor, but you know what it means to hold something lifeless. A business that failed, a friendship gone cold, a vision that seems buried. And people around you may whisper, it's over. Don't listen too quickly. Like Mama Ades say, lay your hands on what you love and speak to it. Cry if you must, scream if you must. But do not walk away while there is still a heartbeat hidden somewhere in the silence. The world respects strength, but heaven honors love that refuses to quit. Because love, true love, has never been powerless. It resurrects, it rebuilds, it redefines. Mama Adai's story is not only about a boy who came back to life. It is about a mother who showed an entire village that the purest form of faith often wears the face of love. So when you find yourself standing over something that looks dead, remember her. Remember how she refused to let go. Remember how her tears became prayers that shook the heavens. Hold on a little longer. Life might just be waiting for your voice. When the boy's body was laid before the altar, Pastor Nana felt a coldness crawl up his spine. He had preached about faith countless times, about the God who raises the dead, about the miracles of old. But that morning, all the verses seemed to vanish from his tongue. The faces of the congregation turned to him like questions with no answers. He looked at the child, still and pale, and something inside him trembled. What if nothing happens? What if this child stays dead? It is one thing to preach faith, another to stand before lifelessness and test it. And yet, that is where true belief begins, where fear meets responsibility. He took a slow breath. The church smelled of dust, candle wax and tears. Outside, someone began to sing softly, a broken melody that wrapped around his heart. "Lord," he whispered, "you gave me words every Sunday, but now I need more than words. I need you." He knelt, trembling, and placed both hands on the boy's chest. His palms were warm, but the body beneath them was not. He could hear Mama Ades weeping beside him. He could feel the eyes of the crowd burning into his back. Some hopeful, some doubting, some waiting to see if faith still had power in this world. He prayed. Not the kind of prayer that fits into neat sentences, but the kind that breaks through pride and fear alike. "God of my fathers," he said, "if ever you have used dust to bring forth life, use me now." For a moment, nothing happened. And then, something within him broke open. Not in despair, but in surrender. It was as though he understood finally that belief isn't about control. It's about yielding to a power beyond you. He stopped trying, to command the miracle, and began simply to love the boy back to life. Every leader, every teacher, every believer knows the weight Pastor Nana carried that day, the burden of belief. We think faith is easy for those who stand on the stage, those who preach and lead, but often they are the ones who wrestle with the greatest doubts. Because belief, when tested publicly, feels like standing naked before the world. The pastor's struggle is a mirror for us all. He teaches that belief is not the absence of uncertainty. It is the courage to act even while your hands shake. Faith does not erase human fear. It transcends it. In the moment he surrendered control, something ancient stirred. It wasn't thunder or lightning. It was quieter. A whisper of life itself. The boy's hand twitched, and every heart in that room leapt. The pastor didn't shout. He just wept. Because in that instant, he understood what many of us forget. Miracles do not happen to glorify the strong. They happen to remind us of our smallness and the greatness of the unseen. If you've ever felt the pressure to be strong, to be the one everyone looks to carry the weight of others' hopes, you know the burden of belief. Maybe you're the eldest in your family, the one who must never break. Maybe you're the friend everyone calls when life collapses. Maybe you're the voice of hope in a place that's forgotten how to dream. You smile, you pray, you encourage. But when night falls, you wonder if your own faith is enough. Pastor Nana's story whispers something sacred to you. It's okay to tremble. It's okay to cry while you pray. It's okay to admit that you don't have all the answers. Because real strength is not in pretending. It's in surrendering. When you stop performing faith and start living it. When you stop trying to look powerful and instead invite power itself to flow through you. That's when the extraordinary happens. So, when the weight of others' expectations feels too heavy, remember the pastor kneeling beside a lifeless boy. He didn't bring life because he was perfect. He brought life because he was willing to be used. And that, my friend, is the secret of every miracle. Not our perfection, but our availability. News spreads fast in a small village. By evening, the story of Chuka's fall had already left the church and raced through Agbani like wind through dry leaves. At the roadside kiosks, at the well, even among the palm wine drinkers under the Shudala tree, everyone had something to say. They say the boy died and came back to life. Maybe it was not real death. Or maybe the pastor used something strange. Doubt has a voice that echoes louder than faith, especially when the miracle is too close to believe. The same people who had prayed for wonders now whispered suspicion. And in their whispers was the quiet poison that eats at every community. The fear that something good cannot be trusted. That evening, as the sun bled red over the hills, Pastor Anana walked home alone. The dust clung to his sandals. He could still hear the echo of the congregation's gasps when Chuka coughed and opened his eyes. He should have been at peace, yet his spirit felt heavy. Maybe they will say it was a trick, he murmured. Maybe they will forget to thank God. Behind him, a child ran past laughing, and for a moment, he smiled, because the laughter sounded like hope refusing to die. Miracles don't just test faith, they test hearts. It's easy to believe when something good happens to you, but it's harder to rejoice when it happens to someone else. The villagers had prayed for signs, but when the sign came, it confronted their comfort. They had to decide, would they celebrate what they couldn't understand, or would they destroy it with their tongues? Doubt is a shadow that follows light, and in many of our lives, the moment something beautiful happens, a breakthrough, a restoration, a second chance, people around us begin to whisper. Maybe it's luck. Maybe it won't last. Maybe it's not real. But here is what the story of Agbani teaches us. You cannot control the whispers, only your response. When others doubt your blessing, let your consistency silence them. When they question your growth, let your peace answer for you. When they gossip about your miracle, let your humility become your defense. Pastor Nana didn't argue with the skeptics. He didn't hold a meeting to prove the miracle. He simply kept serving, praying, and walking in quiet gratitude. And with time, people noticed something. The boy who was once lifeless was now stronger, brighter, filled with a joy that could not be faked. The truth needs no defense, only time. In life, every good thing you do will be tested by misunderstanding. There will always be whispers. But you must decide whether to live for applause or for purpose. When people talk behind your back, remember, they are behind you for a reason. Their words cannot reach where your calling is leading you. Faith is not proven by arguing, it is proven by endurance. When you face doubt, from others, from society, even from within yourself, stand firm in the quiet, knowing that truth, like sunrise, cannot stay hidden forever. And perhaps when they see your consistency, the very people who whispered will one day say, "We did not believe at first, but now we have seen." The morning after the miracle, Agbani woke to a silence different from any other. It was not the silence of peace, but of awe. The roosters crowed as usual. The wind rustled the banana leaves. Yet the air itself felt heavier, charged, as though the earth remembered what it had seen. Chuka's home was filled with people. Some came to rejoice, some came to confirm if the rumor was true, and a few came simply to stare. He sat quietly on a mat, a blanket around his shoulders, his small hands holding a cup of pap. His mother insisted he finish. His eyes, still drowsy, had a calmness beyond his years. Pastor Nana entered with slow steps. The boy looked up, their eyes met, and something passed between them. Not words, but understanding. The pastor smiled faintly. "How do you feel, my son?" Chuka's answer was simple. "I feel light." Mama Adayese began to cry again, this time from joy. She knelt, hugging her child, whispering thank yous into his hair. People outside began to clap. Others sang softly. For that brief hour, all fear seemed to fade. But as the crowd grew, so did the murmurs. "Should we call the press?" someone asked. "Shouldn't he rest first?" said another. And one old man muttered, "When good things happen, the spirits take notice. They may come for payment." Even joy in Agbani was shadowed by caution. By evening, when the crowd dispersed, Chuka's father sat beside the boy. "My son," he said, "you died and came back. Do you remember where you went?" Chuka hesitated, eyes distant. "I saw light and voices singing," he whispered. "But they told me to go back. Someone was calling me." His father swallowed hard. "Who?" Chuka looked toward the window, the same one from which he had fallen, and said softly, "Mama." Sometimes the true miracle is not the moment life returns, but the day after, when reality settles in. The miracle must learn to live among ordinary things again. The one who was healed must face the weight of being alive once more. The people of Agbani wanted a story to tell. Chuka and his mother had to live its consequences. That is how it often is with us. When something extraordinary happens, a breakthrough, a restoration, an answered prayer, the crowd celebrates the event. But not everyone stays for the aftermath. The next day always comes, and it tests whether we can carry the blessing with humility, whether we can keep believing when the excitement fades. Chuka's simple answer, "I feel light," was not just a child's response. It was a lesson in purity. Sometimes miracles don't need to be explained. They just need to be lived. And Mama Adase's tears remind us that gratitude should last longer than applause. The day after your miracle will test your heart more than the day it happened. When the noise quiets, will you still give thanks? When no one is watching, will you still walk with reverence? When curiosity fades, will you guard what was restored to you with care? Many people seek wonders but forget the weight that follows them. Blessings carry responsibility. To stay grateful, to remain humble, to remember the giver. If life has given you a second chance, a healed relationship, a revived dream, a restored purpose, treat it gently. Don't rush to prove it. Don't flaunt it. Live it quietly, deeply, truthfully. Because sometimes the true miracle is not the resurrection itself, but how we live after it. Every miracle carries a shadow. In Agbani, when something great happens, the elders always say, light attracts attention, even from those who prefer darkness. After Chuka's return, the church overflowed with people every Sunday. Strangers traveled from nearby villages just to see the boy who died and woke. Vendors sold bread and sachet water outside the gate. Some came seeking healing, others came to witness, to doubt, or to gossip. But beneath the excitement, something heavy lingered. Pastor Nana could feel it, that silent, invisible weight that always follows divine moments. He began to dream strange dreams, a wide field under storm clouds, a child standing at the edge of light, calling for his mother, voices whispering, "Be careful what you awaken." He would wake drenched in sweat, unsure if it was warning or memory. Meanwhile, Mama Adaze was learning her own cost. Every night she would watch Chuka sleep, afraid to close her eyes. What if the boy stopped breathing again? What if the miracle was only temporary? One night, Chuka stirred and whispered, "Mama, why do you watch me?" "Because I don't want to lose you again," she replied. He smiled faintly. "Then don't be afraid." The light said, "I still have work to do." She froze. "What light, my son?" But he was already drifting back to sleep. His lips curved into a mysterious smile. The world celebrates the moment of glory, but rarely understands the price paid for it. Every answered prayer comes with a responsibility. To carry what was given with reverence, to withstand the pressure that follows divine attention. When something supernatural happens, it doesn't just change circumstances. It shifts destinies. For Pastor Nana, it meant a new level of scrutiny. For Mama Adaze, it meant constant fear. For Chuka, it meant a calling too great for his young heart to grasp. Many of us pray for miracles without realizing their cost. We want the spotlight of wonder, but not the discipline of stewardship. We want resurrection without responsibility, but blessings come wrapped in tests. The miracle may lift you high, but it also exposes you to storms that only faith can survive. The pastor learned this the hard way. One evening, a respected elder confronted him. "Are you sure this thing is from God? You know some powers are not pure." Pastor Nana looked him in the eye and replied softly, "If it brings life, peace, and love, then it can only be from the one who made them all." He walked away, his spirit calm, because he had discovered a truth. The price of a miracle is not fear, it's integrity. When grace finds you, guard it. When life gives you a second chance, protect it from pride, from fear, and from noise. The price of every miracle is humility. The ability to carry greatness quietly. It is the discipline to say no to arrogance. To resist the urge to explain everything. To remain small even when your story becomes big. Sometimes, the greater the blessing, the greater the burden of character required to sustain it. If you are in a season where something good has happened, a breakthrough, a recovery, an answered prayer, remember this. The miracle was free, but keeping it will cost you growth. You must become the kind of person who can hold it. So when the crowd cheers and the lights shine, whisper to your soul, stay humble, stay grounded, stay grateful. Because miracles do not end when they happen. They begin there. Children are not meant to carry mysteries, yet some are born to remind us of them. After his return, Chuka changed. He still played, laughed, and chased goats down the path. But every so often, he would stop mid-laughter and stare into the distance, eyes distant, like he could see something others could not. Once, his mother found him sitting alone under the mango tree. The sun had just set, painting gold across the village rooftops. "Chuka, what are you doing here?" she asked gently. He smiled faintly. "Listening." "Listening to what?" He pointed upward. "To the light. It hums when it's happy." Mama Ardisi knelt beside him, brushing the dust from his legs. "My son, you're talking strange again." He turned to her, his voice calm. "It's not strange, Mama. It's just that most people forget the sound after they grow old." Her heart trembled. She did not know whether to be afraid or amazed. As days passed, Chuka began asking questions that startled even the pastor. Why do people pray for miracles, but stop being kind after they get them? Why do some only believe in God when they're in pain? Why do we wait for someone to die before we say we love them? Pastor Nana would smile softly and say, "You ask questions only elders should ask, my boy." But Chuka would shrug. Maybe the light lets children ask, because adults have forgotten how. There are moments in life when the veil between the ordinary and the divine grows thin. Some experience it through loss, others through love. For Chuka, it was through death. A moment so brief, yet so transforming, that it left an imprint on his soul. The light he spoke of wasn't just heavenly, it was symbolic of awareness. The kind of awareness we lose when we get too busy surviving. The light is that stillness inside us that remembers wonder. The voice that whispers truth when the world gets too loud. When Chuka said, "The light hums when it's happy," he wasn't speaking of some fantasy. He was describing the harmony that happens when our lives align with goodness, gratitude, and purpose. As adults, we often forget that music. We stop listening to our conscience, our intuition, the quiet pull toward kindness. We drown it out with worry, ambition, and noise. But children, and sometimes those who have brushed against death, hear it clearly. Chuka's story reminds us that wisdom isn't always found in age. Sometimes it lives in innocence. He remembered what most of us forget, that life itself is a miracle. Every breath, every sunrise, every heartbeat. You don't have to die and return to learn what Chuka learned. You just have to slow down long enough to listen again. To your spirit, to others, to the world's quiet music. Maybe the light he spoke of still hums around us. Maybe it hums every time a mother forgives, every time a stranger helps another, every time someone chooses love over pride. So the next time life feels heavy, stop and listen. You might hear it. That faint, familiar hum that says, "You are still here. There is still purpose. There is still light." There is a saying in Agbani, "Even the strongest tree bows to the wind before it grows taller." When Chuka fell from that church window, the world saw tragedy. But hidden inside that fall was the truth about all of us. Sometimes life must bring you low before it can lift you higher. Every fall has a voice. It whispers your fears, exposes your weakness, strips away your pride, but it also plants you deeper into the soil of purpose. Chuka didn't fall because he was careless. He fell because he was human, like all of us. And when we fall into failure, heartbreak, loss, or doubt, the world rushes to label it the end. But the universe, wiser than our impatience, often uses the fall as a doorway. When a seed falls to the ground, it doesn't die to end, it dies to transform. When Chuka fell, he entered darkness. But in that stillness, something beyond his understanding touched him. And when he rose again, he carried light. Falling is part of living. No man climbs without slipping. No woman dreams without stumbling. The difference between the broken and the brave is not in how hard they hit the ground. It's in whether they choose to rise again. When you fall, don't rush to escape the ground. Listen to it. The ground has lessons. It teaches humility, that you are not invincible. It teaches empathy, that others fall too. It teaches strength, that rising means nothing if you never fell. Many people hide their failures as though they are stains. But the truth is, the scars of our falls are proof of survival. Chuka's scar, the one near his temple from that fall, became a testimony. Not of pain, but of grace. So when you fail, don't curse the fall. Ask, what is this trying to teach me? Because sometimes the ground is the only classroom where destiny teaches its most powerful lessons. The next time life knocks you down, remember this. The fall is not your punishment, it's your preparation. Every setback holds seeds of resurrection. Every loss contains the blueprint of recovery. You may not see it now, but one day you will look back at your lowest point and whisper, "That was where I found my strength." So stand again, breathe again, dream again. You are not broken. You are becoming. And if you ever doubt it, remember the boy who fell and rose carrying the light. When the miracle faded into memory, when the song stopped and the visitors left, Agbani village returned to its rhythm. But Mama Adeza never walked past the church without pausing. Every morning she placed a palm on its wall and whispered, "Thank you." No crowd, no cameras, no applause, just gratitude, soft, steady, sincere. And that quiet ritual teaches something the world has almost forgotten. Gratitude is power, not performance. The world teaches us to chase more success, more recognition, more miracles. But gratitude slows us down, reminding us that what we already have is more than enough. Gratitude transforms perception. It doesn't change circumstances first, it changes you. It opens the eyes of the heart to see beauty in ordinary things. When Mama Adez thanked God daily, she wasn't just remembering the past. She was keeping her spirit alive in the present. Because gratitude is not memory, it is awareness. To be thankful when everything is perfect is easy. To be thankful while still healing, that is wisdom. Chuka's story shows that every breath, every sunrise, every touch of kindness is a small miracle in disguise. But we walk past them because we are too busy waiting for thunder and lightning. Sometimes heaven whispers blessings in ordinary tones, and the one who pauses to say thank you becomes the one who receives more. Because the universe expands for those who appreciate what they already hold. Don't wait for big miracles before you give thanks. Be grateful for the meal on your table, the voice of someone who still calls your name, the body that still breathes, the courage that still gets you out of bed. Gratitude is a doorway. The wider you open it, the more light enters. When you wake tomorrow, whisper thank you. When you fail but still find strength to try again, whisper thank you. When you are misunderstood but not broken, whisper thank you. Because gratitude doesn't change what you have. It changes how deeply you can see it. And once your eyes learn to see like that, every day feels like a miracle. Years passed. The story of the boy who fell and lived became legend in Agbani. Children grew up hearing it by the fireside. Travelers told it on long journeys. Some added details, others took them away. But one thing never changed. The ending. The boy lived. But beyond the story of his return was a greater truth. The light didn't leave when the miracle ended. It spread. Pastor Nana's sermons became gentler, filled with compassion. Mama Adas began visiting sick children at the clinic, telling their mothers not to lose hope. And Chuka, now taller, wiser, carried a calmness wherever he went. He didn't talk much about the fall, but when he did, he always said, "The light was never mine. It just passed through me." That is how purpose works. You are not the source of the light. You are its vessel. You are not the miracle. You are the messenger. Too often we think legacy is about leaving monuments. But true legacy is the quiet influence of kindness that outlives us. The miracle that started in one family changed a whole village. Not because of noise, but because of light. Every time someone forgave another, every time someone believed again, every time a child laughed freely, the light grew stronger. That's how goodness travels. Silently, endlessly, from heart to heart. You may never raise the dead, but you can raise hope. You can lift spirits. You can breathe life into weary hearts, just by the way you love, forgive, and speak truth. That is your legacy. The world will forget your titles, your possessions, your appearances, but it will never forget how you made people feel. Whether you added to their darkness or helped them find their light. So live like Chuka. Not to be remembered for what happened to you, but for what shone through you. Be the light in someone's darkness. Speak life into broken dreams. Let compassion be your echo long after your name fades. Because in the end, miracles don't just happen in churches or through preachers. They happen every time love wins over fear. Every time kindness breaks a cycle of pain. Every time someone falls and rises again with a heart that glows. That is how legends are born. Not through thunder, but through light.